Season 2, Episode 1. So they said it couldn't be done. They said we wouldn't actually get a second season, but through cheesy dialogue and circus special effects, we actually managed to get one. So let's talk about Season 2, Episode 1. Did this shit kind of change up? Did they kind of fix the problems of Shadowhunters in the first season and kind of improve on it a bit? I'm proud to actually say that they actually did. Now, everybody and their mom are going to be talking about this dark and gritty tone, so let's get to it right away. I liked the tone that they kind of set here. I liked the darkness. I liked the maturity of this episode for the most part. But I just hope that they don't lose themselves in the midst of actually kind of to try to go darker just to begin with. Because even though it's going darker, that's great. But if it takes itself too seriously, because you know there's kind of like some dumb shit still to be here, then I feel like that's when the show kind of loses itself, and I feel like it becomes a little bit of a drag. But nonetheless, I think they actually did a pretty good job with some of the dark shit that they actually really did here, because we saw dead bodies at the very beginning, and we seen burning faces, you know, on like shields, or you know, or in force fields or whatever it may be. That was actually pretty brutal shit. You know, the dead bodies at the beginning and like the pier or whatever. It was actually pretty good. Some things I really did like about this episode particularly was at the very beginning with the dead bodies. With Jason, you know, Valentine, you know, Claire was kind of like looking for him, whatever it may be, and Jason and Valentine actually have a pretty good fight. Granted, it sounded like a bit of a dubstep sword fight, but either way, I thought it was actually a pretty good thing. We even saw Valentine had, you know, like the sword in, you know, his stomach or his chest or whatever, maybe with blood. I thought that was actually pretty good. They even improved on the swords to begin with, because that was one of the main problems I had done in other reviews, where it just simply put looked like circus props. And I've seen circus people have better, you know, weapons just to begin with. They looked like they required batteries, you know, because they only charge for about 3 hours. That's pretty much what it was. But even though the fight choreography was actually quite good, as I said before, the music in there sounded a little bit like dubstep. And that kind of took me out of it. And that also brings up to another problem later on. Now, a couple of other things that I really did enjoy in this episode was the tension between Valentine and Jace. I enjoyed pretty much every scene that they were in. The father and son sort of relationship, or maybe not, from some people will say. I enjoyed this relationship in this episode. Now, it's still hard for me to kind of treat Valentine as a serious villain, because he's talking about Pecorino. And look, I know Jace probably thinks Valentine's Pecorino probably sucks, but there's no reason to kind of like cut his throat out because of it. I thought that was kind of a funny scene. You know, some kids spit out their foods because they don't want to eat. You know, Jace, you know, goes for a knife and tries to cut the guy. But I thought that was actually kind of funny to just see. But you can see it, you can sense pretty much the inner turmoil that Jason's kind of you know, fighting with. You know, his inner dilemma. Some things that we actually really did learn is that Valentine was pretty much getting his Nick Nolte on from like the Hulk, and doing test subjects on pretty much Jace. He tested demon blood, so I thought that was interesting to see. What exactly is Jace going to do? That's like demon puberty, so that should be very interesting. Simon apparently is looking like a very, very pale vampire, which is kind of interesting, because I felt like the other vampires didn't look as pale as Simon did. But that was just kind of like my thought just to begin with. A couple of other things that has really improved in here was the acting. I thought the acting was pretty spot on here, and I think they definitely toned it down, not only for the older topness really to begin with, but they also toned it down in the look of the show. Also, but when it comes to the acting, I thought some of the best scenes really were the Malik stuff. Now, even though the show is improving on the faults that they kind of had in the previous season, I'm just wondering, will the Malik relationship be one of the best parts? Because in the previous season, it was the best part because the show was kind of cheesy and kind of, you know, it wasn't great per se, but it was entertaining. But now that it's kind of getting a little bit more improved, will it maintain the best parts, or will it kind of just falter a bit? But the stuff in here with Malik or whatever it may be, I thought it was actually quite good. The argument that they kind of had, I was with more Magnus in that situation, because Alec was kind of treating him like, you know, a little bit like an asshole. He's a bit of a dick. And that will kind of be the sense of many things. There'll be a lot of dicks in this episode, and I'll get to that in a few seconds. But overall, I enjoyed the relationship in this episode, and granted, it was kind of like stupid, because for some reason, whether you're training or doing warlock fucking hand motions, you got to take your shirt off for some reason. I'm just wondering, when are we going to get a shirt off for like Clary and Izzy, you know, and everybody else that's pretty much hot? The two MILFs in this pretty much, you know, season or episode, whatever it may be. I was wondering, when do we get to that? When do we get to the good stuff? Just to begin with. Another thing I really enjoyed for fire choreography, just to begin with, because they really stepped it up, was the Izzy and Clary fight. Now, at first I was like, this kind of got edited a little bit weirdly in. I feel like it just kind of happened. But I thought it was actually quite good to begin with, because I thought it served the purpose. As you pretty much will find out later on, which she, you know, Izzy was pretty much saying you have to know your enemy, you have to become your enemy. but I actually thought it was pretty good. Unfortunately, the music in that scene, just to begin with, sounded like free YouTube uncopyrighted music. If anybody done a video and they had YouTube free music, that's what that shit sounded like. And it made me like just burst out laughing. But I thought it was pretty good. You know, we had Izzy in some tight shots and Clary in some very flat ass jeans. But nonetheless, I thought it was actually pretty good. I thought it was a fun scene. And it served the purpose on the relationship, but it also served the purpose for the story to move it forward. Because that moves us to the next thing, which is Aldertree. Aldertree's the new boss, right? He's a big boss. And the main thing is everybody's kind of hunting down Jason's episode. And he's a bit of a dick. And not only that, but what's worse than being a dick is a British dick. And this guy is a British dick. Now, I understand his motions trying to like get Jason to clave or whatever it may be, but he kind of came across a little bit like an asshole. And as I said in that fight with Clary and Izzy, she had to eventually, you know, do what I forgot, a disguise or whatever. I forgot what it was called. But anyway, she did disguise to be Aldertree to get out of the clave because he did a shutdown because they was trying to look for Jace. Anyway, that's pretty much what it was. But I thought he was good at what his role was. At first I thought he was like a shrink, but you know, he played his part very well to begin with. Simon, on the other hand, I thought was actually pretty funny. I'm glad Shadowhunters still has that funny sense about them because I don't want them to go too serious because then it will kind of be, like I said, a little bit of a drag to watch. Lou pretty much tells Simon to like, you know, hide out, whatever it may be, in the spot, and all the werewolves are kind of saying, hey, Simon goes there, but he starts to do his very failed Harry Potter magic trick. And I thought that was funny to begin with. Now, as I said, they're making Simon a little bit too pale from what I've seen, and they have increased a lot better on the speed running from what I've seen, and that's good because, like I said, improvements is the way to go, and I feel like the new direction is great. Just don't go too far away from what kind of made the first season good to me, just to begin with. But I like the Simon here and Clary and him kind of have this conversation, and it still seemed like she's kind of, you know, teetering on his nuts to the point where it's just like, come on, Clary, you're either going to get with this guy or you're not going to get with this guy because this guy is dying here, or he's already dead, technically. But, you know, come on, make up your fucking mind, just to begin with. A couple of other things is that I really enjoyed Jace, the vampire slayer. So Valentine pretty much sends Jace on this mission to kill like these vampires or whatever it may be. And I thought that was a pretty cool, badass fight, just to begin with. And he's taking out vampires, whatever it may be. And it literally looks like some shit right out of Buffy, but maybe even slightly cooler. I thought the music on that one felt good, and I thought that felt great. Granted, the female vampire actually was a little bit over the top. She's talking about, you know, Jace says, you know, you slaughtered all these, you know, regular mundanes, and she was just like, you know, girls gotta eat. I was just like, I laughed right out loud. I mean, like, this was literally pretty bad for the most part, but either way, that pretty much ends, and then she pretty much, you know, surrenders herself to the clave, and that was kind of like testing Jace's, you know, mentality, whatever, where he's at. And she literally does some very weird sexual innuendos, if anybody caught that, where she said, you know, there you go, you got your stick ready to go, which is pretty much right on her chest, and you can't use it. You know, I'm pretty sure we have all had those problems, sad to say. But either way, that was pretty much kind of a funny scene to begin with. And Valentine was kind of like testing Jace, but eventually, you know, she gets killed or whatever it may be, and she's nothing really more than just a plot device. Jocelyn is pretty much tracking down, you know, Jace and Valentine. You know, Simon, Clary is also tracking down Jocelyn. They all kind of meet up. You know, Jocelyn pretty much takes a shot at Valentine. He gets shot trying to protect Jace. And then they kind of go back into the portal that they kind of went. And eventually Clary, Simon, and Jocelyn, they all pretty much, you know, are looking at each other. And Clary does with her very weird, always over the top, scary face. It's just like, what have you done? And then that's pretty much how we kind of end this episode. Now, overall, I thought it was actually a pretty good episode. Things got improved. Things got further. Things got developed. But overall, this season looks like it's going in a very positive note. But I was proud to say this was actually pretty good. Now, if you haven't seen the show Beyond, I actually kind of said Beyond had some pretty good acting. But I actually thought this season premiere actually had a lot more better acting. And so far, if you watch a pilot from the first season and watch this premiere, then you really do see a big progression and change from the maturity just to begin with. But I really enjoyed this episode. Did you enjoy it? Let me know. Comment, subscribe, and like. Share this video if you can. That would actually be very helpful. Or subscribe, but I'd rather you actually subscribe and share. You know, do a little bit of both. That's my dog. I'm Chris Smith, and I'm signing out.